Let's talk about water use and the scarcity thereof, both of surface and groundwater. It's going to get a little scary. Before we do, let me give you one of the final pieces of the super secret code. It is the number 2. You got me? Number 2. Number 2. So, who's using the water? This is something important to remember. This may come back again. So, globally, 70% of water is used for agriculture. Growing crops, cattle, whatever needs water to drink. 70% is used for agriculture. 22% industrial, 8% domestic. So the majority of water that we use is farms. They're using the majority of the water. Okay, so maybe more better sustainable water practice need to happen there. Industrial, that's the industry making things. You need water to make stuff. But domestically, houses, what we use to drink, bathe, whatever, that's only 8% of what we use as the world. That low to middle income countries, that kind of changes more agriculture than industry. In high income countries, that kind of changes more industry, less agriculture, a little bit more domestically, but still, way less agriculture, way more industrial, and domestic use is pretty similar. But overall, agriculture by far uses the most water globally. So focusing on agriculture, well, how do they use that water? So this looks at 100% of the water they get. All right. So of all the water that agriculture farms go to spray on their crops, only 45% of it is actually effectively used by crops. Less than half of that water that they spray on their crops is actually used by the plants. 25% of it is just lost. So either they sprayed the road, they weren't spraying the crops, they sprayed somewhere else, they weren't spraying what they should have. You just kind of whatever. 15% of it distribution loss. So as it goes from one pipe to the next, it leaks out. It doesn't go where it's supposed to. And then transmission to farm. So getting it from a canal or from someplace to the farm, 15% of it is lost as well. So you'll lose 55% of it before you even get a chance to spray it on the crops. Yeah. Or when you do apply it to a field, it evaporates away, it doesn't have time to soak in. Think about here in the desert, how fast water evaporates. So as we're spraying the water, or if we open up and flood the farm area, that water can evaporate very quickly. You're losing 25% of it. Water scarcity is almost globally an issue. Red indicates economic water scarcity, indicating there could be water, but there's just not enough money to build build a pipeline, to drill down to create a well. So there's water there. It's just economically there's not enough money to make it happen. So that's a reality around the world. Orange is physical water scarcity. There is just not water there. Physically not water. Yellow is approaching physical water scarcity. Green is okay for now. And this map is actually a little older, so you can see a lot of orange, yellow, and red, which is not good. A good example of not good, of using water very unwisely, is a place called Mono Lake. It's that little lake right in the middle there in California. So right in Central California, in 1941, the city of Los Angeles, the Water and Power Department, built the Los Angeles Aqueduct, which is a 300-mile pipeline from Mono Lake to Los Angeles, which, I don't know if you know this, Los Angeles is kind of way down here. So there are 4 creeks that feed into, there's I think 7 or 8 creeks that feed into Mono Lake. 4 of them were kind of diverted to Los Angeles. Again, yeah, LA is way down there. So by 1990, Mono Lake had dropped 45 feet, lost over half its volume. There are many endangered birds and fish species in this area. Think about that. LA needs so much water that they went 300 miles away to get it. If your city needs to get water from so far away, maybe you shouldn't be a city. Maybe that's not the best place to live. Not just LA. So there are the 4 creeks, Lee, Vining, Walker, Parker, and Rush Creek, that instead of flowing into Mono Lake to refresh it, they're diverted away. That's runoff from the Sierra Nevada mountains. Yeah. So that's Mono Lake. But there's a number of other aqueducts that transfer water elsewhere in California. In California, without this water, LA would not have become the large city that it eventually did, one of the largest in the world. It did help to spur an economy that rivals that of many nations. So the economy of LA and California is more than most countries of the world, just that city and state alone. This year, in 2021, that Mono Lake is still supplying 29% of the water that is needed for the 4 million people that live in Los Angeles proper. Again, if you're pumping water that far away, maybe you shouldn't be a city. But again, this is not the only issue around the world, and this is one example. And this focuses on the domestic. This is needed for the people domestically. Agriculturally, a horrible example is the Aral Sea. The Aral Sea is between Kazakhstan in the north and Uzbekistan in the south. These are both former countries in the Soviet Union. Water was pumped out of the Aral Sea for Soviet-era agriculture. Communism, Soviet Union, large area, needed to feed its people. To feed your people, you need crops. For crops to grow, you need water. So they pumped out almost all of the water. This was once the world's fourth largest freshwater lake. 90% of it is now dried up because it was diverted to grow crops for Soviet Union area countries. That one's not coming back. You can find just large ships out in the middle of what was the Aral Sea, now a desert. Just large ships that were once coasting around the fourth largest lake. No more. Another domestic issue. Right here in Arizona. This one just came across the news not too long ago. In Mesa, there's a place called Cannon Beach. It's a planned 37-acre kind of project, little fun park. In there, they have a 3.3-acre surf wave lagoon. So this is going to be for surfing. So it creates giant waves and you can surf it. So they said they made this because for all the surfers who've relocated to Arizona but still yearn for the beach, how about you just go to the beach? It's scheduled to open in May 2022. Yeah, sure, it's radical, dude. Hang 10, but is it sustainable? We're in a desert. Think about how much water this is going to use. Not smart. The ocean isn't that far. Go to the ocean. So here's the kind of planned development of the whole thing. More from Arizona. So this occurred in May and June of 2021. So depending on when you're seeing this, it could be recent, could be not recent. But look it up now. Lake Powell in northern Arizona, which is dammed up. The level of Lake Powell is dropping to new lows as the Colorado River, which is partly dammed up here, is providing less water. We're using more of it, so the water levels are sinking to historic lows. Same thing in Lake Mead. That's what's behind the Hoover Dam, kind of between Arizona and Nevada, sinking to new lows in the mega drought that we are in here in Arizona. It's bad. It's bad, and it's only going to get worse. There's no plans to make it better. You're relying on nature, and with climate change, it's just getting worse. It's getting drier. It's just getting hotter. So that water is being used. It's evaporating. There's nothing to replenish it. Again, depending on when you're viewing this, currently they are looking at, well, how are we going to cut back? How are we going to allocate less water from these areas? So there's going to be less water going to certain areas. It's going to have less water. So here's Lake Powell, kind of just north of Page. Here's Lake Mead on your way to Las Vegas behind the Hoover Dam. Here we are down here. Yep, there you go. So, it's so bad in Arizona. I'm telling you, don't buy a house here. This is not me like trying to like scare you. This is me telling you the truth. Don't buy a house here. Water is going to be a big issue. It is a big issue. And I said this in a previous unit. The reason they don't talk about this stuff, politicians don't talk about this stuff, because if they scare you and you move away, they're losing tax revenue. Without tax revenue, they can't pay themselves a paycheck. So why would they do that? So it's not that like they're lying to you, they're just not telling you. The news tries to tell you. You don't read the news, do you? Probably not. You should. You should. No, Facebook is not the news. No, Twitter's not. Read the news. News organizations are against the people. No, they're not. They're fine. Don't be dumb. Here's how bad it is. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. So the Arizona legislature, they propose pumping Mississippi River water to Arizona to help with our drought. You thought it was bad taking water from Mono Lake to LA 300 miles away. Do you know how far the Mississippi River is away from Arizona? This is what they're proposing. This is what they're proposing. Again, it's a proposal. It's not a reality yet, but it very well could be. So the proposal is piping from Davenport, Iowa, 868 miles away just to get to the Colorado River, which will then kind of feed in back down to Arizona, replenish some of those low lake levels. That's ridiculous. Don't live here. As soon as you can, leave. Don't buy a house here. Tell your family, tell your friends, it's going to get bad. It's going to get worse. They're trying to pump water from Mississippi River here. That's how bad it is. I would go where there is water, fresh water. Near the Mississippi River, maybe. Near the Great Lakes. Somewhere where there's fresh water. It's only going to get worse in the West. And I'm talking everywhere in the West. It ain't really going to get better. I would say anywhere from the Mississippi River over east. My suggestion. Trust me. Let me give you another part of the super secret code. It is the number 7. Number 7. Lucky number 7. Pumping water from the Mississippi River. Good golly. Good golly. Please trust me. All right. As far as what are the big or main ideas as it pertains to groundwater, some of that groundwater general information, what it is, where it's located, how we utilize it in Arizona, etc. Subsidence, how and where, especially in Arizona. Karst, topography, dissolution, that process, the characteristics, some of those formations, locations around the U.S. and Arizona, Karstner Caverns we talked about. And then global freshwater use and scarcity. Remember back to that chart that shows global water use, stuff like that, scarcity. And remember, move out of Arizona. All right, well, that brings us to the end. I tell you what, let's give you one more part of that super secret code. It's the number 4. You got me? Number 4. One more time, the number 4. Well, on that happy note, until next time, have a good one.